Right. So I'm going to start the rebuttal for the team. The rebuttal for the arguments the against team posed against us earlier. So the guy he said renewable energy. The guy he talked about how nuclear energy is actually clean energy. I wonder about that because if you were to look at the facts, nuclear power plants actually, like when they use uranium, the waste that comes out is actually 9% uranium, which means they actually only use 10% of the fuel that they bring in, and 9% is not unused. After that, he actually goes on to say that it's efficient, even though I just said that they actually use 10% of the fuel. However, he is correct. You can reprocess and reuse the nuclear waste that comes out since it's 9% uranium used. And I've done research on that. The machines that actually reuse those fuels are called fast neutron reactors. In the case of those machines, yes, they reuse those fuels and then produce, and then they come out as energy, but also as plutonium. First of all, plutonium is used for nuclear weapons. So if plutonium is a byproduct, then it's totally risky since it actually creates weapons. And also another interesting fact about the fast neutron reactors is that they actually produce their efficiency is actually pretty low. So it's actually uneconomical to mass produce those machines. After that, the person also said that the death rate produced by nuclear energy talked about the death rate of produced when there are nuclear accidents. Here's the thing: he mentioned less death per unit time. However, nuclear energy, there is no definable upper bound on the level of casualties. The aftermath, the consequence of nuclear fallouts of radiation, you can't calculate. They just stay there for a long time. Just look at Chernobyl. Meltdown Chernobyl caused a no entry zone with a radius of 30 kilometers, and although it doesn't, there wasn't thousands of deaths, it still cost 330,000 people to relocate from their houses. It still caused damages. It still caused people to suffer from cancer, birth deformations, and all that stuff, which is torturing and painful for people to go through. And why would we make them go through all that when only 13.6% of the world's energy is nuclear? The combination of alternative is much. The alternatives. It's much more safe. Not safer, but there are more choices out there than nuclear energy. In fact, there's a reason why the second and fourth strongest economy initiate a phase to phase out nuclear energy. Nuclear is not the answer to depleting oil and coal reserves. Nuclear energy, although it seems like renewable and safe, in fact isn't, because nuclear energy, nuclear plants, they create clean energy. However, if they would just only talk about the process of creating energy from the nuclear plants. How do we get the fuels? How do we get the uranium? Uranium, mining is dangerous, just like coal mining, and it exposes people to the radiation as well. As you said before, how right now we're using more energy and our iPads on that. As the world currently seeking to be more energy efficient, I think it would just be wiser in the long term to reduce our consumption of energy.
First, I'm going to start with Chernobyl. Because Chernobyl is because of two major mistakes we made. First one is the human operation, because they didn't actually, when the Chernobyl happened, they didn't actually open up the safety system, and all of them are turned off. And the second reason is actually the design problem. everybody knows that Chernobyl's they use the graphite, which during combustion, if you have graphite, which is carbon, and if you react with water, you're gonna have oxygen, which is very combustive. So that's why Chernobyl was a huge disaster. But right now, all of the reactors we use, they're all under control. And for the pollution you mentioned during your debate, during your first introduction, I have to say for the other reactors you use, it's very bad for the water. But like if you use a nuclear the power plants, the water is very clean, and all the water you come out, they're all under ISO standards, so which means they're all drinking level. And beside that, right now we're trying not to use uranium anymore because of the shortage of uranium you mentioned in your debate. We start to use thorium, which has no linkage between the nuclear reactors and the nuclear power plant, which is very safe for us if you are worrying about nuclear reactor. We're using fast breeder reactor, which means we can reuse the uranium and plutonium 60 times. During the fission, we're gonna have we always produce 2 extra neutrons, which means we can produce fossil material as we go, and it's always under control, and it controls nuclear waste and close nuclear fuel cycle same time. And I'm gonna pass to my friend Matthew, and he's gonna finish.
So something you mentioned that wasn't more valuable was as byproducts of nuclear reactions in reactors. They create byproducts. Although we can recycle, one of the things we're worried about is using plutonium for weapons. Although what we do also is we recycle plutonium for thermoelectric generators in satellites and for long-range probes to other planets. And we can also reuse nuclear fuel in reactors, such as the Canadian deuterium reactor, which essentially can take in low-grade uranium byproducts and MOX fuels and recycle for more energy. Although nuclear power is not necessarily a good thing or a bad thing. It is depending on how we use it. This debate is more on the lines of the gun debate. Whether you believe or not that nuclear power is a good thing or a bad thing is strictly up to you. We can't argue statistics. There's always the good things and the bad things. It is not necessarily how bad it is in technical terms, but it's how we use it. How do we manage? How do states, how do people, how do enterprises manage the use of nuclear power? Are we responsible enough to use the technology, or are we going to lead to our own self-destruction? Sure, we can use plutonium to make nuclear weapons, but we can also use the power to generate a much brighter future for everyone. Right? Although we can't say that solar power, wind power, and electric and other methods of renewable energies are not as good as nuclear power, but we can't neglect the fact that nuclear power is here. We have used it, we are using it, but can we afford to not use it? Can we afford not to use such a valuable resource? Thank you.